Welcome to Life Stories, where one decision on a rainy night can change everything. What would you do if the man you loved vanished the moment you told him you were pregnant? What if the only person who truly saw you was a stranger bleeding in the dark, whispering for help? This is not just a story about heartbreak or betrayal. It's about what happens when a woman with nothing left to lose chooses to fight, not just for herself, but for the life growing inside her, and for a man who may carry secrets powerful enough to destroy them both. It's raw, it's emotional, and it asks one of the hardest questions we ever face. How far would you go to protect what matters most? Now come with us and step into a story that begins not with love, but with abandonment, danger, and a knock at the door. Cassie wiped her hands on a rag that used to be white, now permanently stained with oil and regret. Her hoodie was zipped up high, not because of the late autumn chill blowing through the open garage doors, but because it was the only armor she had left. The morning light stretched long across the floor, catching the dust in golden slants as Tommy, watched her over a chipped mug of black coffee, his eyes carrying the kind of concern that asked questions he never said out loud. "You know," he said, his voice gravel and warmth. "Any man who walks away from a woman who can change a fuel filter before breakfast and bake damn near award-winning peach pie after midnight, well, that ain't a man. That's a fool." Cassie forced a smile, though her throat burned. "We're not talking about Mason, remember?" She took the coffee from his hand, letting the heat settle into her skin. "Let's just drink and pretend the world's still sane." They sat in silence, side by side on two overturned buckets, sipping stale diner brew while the radio crackled out a blues guitar solo. For a few fragile minutes it almost felt simple again, but the pressure under her hoodie reminded her it wasn't. Not since the night she stared down at two pink lines alone in a cracked bathroom mirror. Not since Mason's phone stopped ringing. Not since Hope had quietly stepped out the back door without so much as a note. Armin, no, Sal would fire her if he knew. The garage's owner didn't tolerate liabilities. A baby was a liability. And her cab route, that was survival. Rent didn't care about heartbreak. Diapers didn't wait for paychecks. She had no room for grief, only motion. "Dispatch to driver 12, downtown pickup, 20 minutes. The voice snapped through the intercom. Cassie downed the last of her coffee, tossed the cup, and grabbed her keys. "Eat something real today, all right?" Tommy called after her. She raised a hand but didn't turn around. Her throat was tight. "It's just you and me now, kid," she whispered to the passenger no one could see as she turned the ignition. "We're gonna make it." The cab rumbled down Portland's cracked streets as the city yawned awake. But Cassie's mind drifted backward, past the frost-glazed sidewalks, past the anonymous passengers who came and went, to the girl she used to be in Bozeman. The one with calloused hands and a heart full of wild, impossible dreams. The one Grandpa Roy used to lift onto his lap and whisper, "Fix your own engine, Cassie, and no one can tell you where you can't go." Maybe that's why she left Bozeman. Maybe that's why she believed Mason Miller when he brought her daisies and soft eyes and promises she never thought to doubt. He'd said he admired her independence, her grit. But when she told him about the baby, all that admiration vanished behind 5 syllables. "You're sure it's mine?" She had laughed then, trying to brush it off, trying not to break. But the laughter hadn't reached her eyes. Mason had packed a bag the next morning and never came back. Until one day, he did. Cassie had just finished a late shift and stopped for groceries when she saw him outside a boutique on Pearl Street, arms wrapped around Brielle. A woman so perfect Cassie could practically hear her heels clicking across magazine pages. Cassie froze. Mason's arm twitched as if caught mid-crime. Then he saw her, and instead of running toward her, he stepped in front of Brielle like shielding her from some unwanted ghost. "I'm pregnant," Cassie said before she could stop herself. "It's yours. We need to talk." Brielle tilted her head and smiled like a knife. "Sweetheart, you need to move on. Mason has." The words stung worse than the icy wind that night. Mason didn't deny it. He just said, "You should take care of it." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire she didn't start but was burning in anyway. "Get rid of it," he said again. Her hand moved before her brain did. The sound of her palm against his cheek was louder than she expected. "You coward," she whispered. "You don't deserve to be anyone's father." 3 days later, she found herself slumped on her apartment floor, hugging her knees, phone in one hand, fingers trembling above a clinic number she never called. She couldn't. Not after whispering to the tiny flutter in her belly, "I'm sorry, but I need you." When she finally opened the door for Tommy and Jenna, she was hollow. But Jenna didn't flinch. "You don't need a man who walks out when it gets real. You need a plan. We'll help." And help they did. Jenna left warm pancakes outside her door. Tommy got her the cab job. And for a while, she managed. She kept moving because if she stopped, the weight of everything might crush her. Then came the night. Everything shifted again. A long-haul pickup in the suburbs, a canceled fare. Frustrated and broke, she turned the cab around just as the rain began. That's when she saw something on the side of the road. No, someone. A shadow stumbling from the tree line. Bloodied. Collapsing. Cassie pulled over. "Hey, you okay?" The man's lips cracked. "Please. Help." He fell before he could say more. She got him in the cab, heart pounding, tires spinning toward the nearest ER. "You're okay," she kept saying, not sure if she meant it. "Stay with me. You're safe now." He murmured one word before blacking out. Logan. She stayed at the hospital, paid for the intake, gave her statement. Then she went home soaked and shaken. The next morning, there was a knock at her door. 3 men, 2 bodyguards. One man in a cashmere coat with eyes like cut glass. "You're Cassie Bennett?" he asked. "Yes." "You saved my son, Logan Cross. I'm grateful." He placed a thick envelope on the counter, a small token of appreciation. Cassie didn't touch it. "He okay?" "He's fine. Nothing for you to worry about." His eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't say anything unusual, did he? That's when it clicked. The money, the calm menace, the rehearsed smile. "No," she lied. "He barely spoke." "Good," he said. "Let's keep it that way." After he left, she opened the envelope. Inside was more cash than she'd seen in her life. But it didn't feel like gratitude. It felt like silence bought at market price. Later that afternoon, she returned to the hospital. Logan, she was told, was in a medically induced coma. "Wait, he was talking yesterday," she said. The nurse looked apologetic. "Doctor's orders. His father's been here." Cassie turned to leave when a young nurse touched her arm. "You're the driver, right? I need to show you something." In a supply closet, Nurse Erin looked over her shoulder, then whispered, "He's not in a coma. They're sedating him. Heavy stuff. Someone doesn't want him waking up." Cassie stared at her, blood draining from her face. "Why?" Erin shook her head. "Because if he talks, someone powerful goes down, and they'd rather keep him unconscious than take that risk." What would you do if saving someone meant putting your own life and your unborn child in danger? Could you live with yourself if you walked away from the truth? Cassie closed her eyes, then opened them, steady now. She knew what she had to do. And that night, under the cover of darkness, a plan began to take shape. The plan was madness. Cassie knew it the moment she pulled her hoodie tighter over her belly, adjusted the surgical mask Erin handed her, and stepped through the back entrance of the hospital. The place smelled of antiseptic and silence, the kind that clung to the walls like secrets. Every footstep echoed too loud. Every security camera, every hallway light felt like it could expose them. But Erin walked with purpose, like this was just another shift, like they weren't about to steal a man out from under a system built to keep him quiet. They reached Logan's room without incident. He lay unnaturally still, skin pale, chest rising in shallow, metronomic breaths. The IV bag beside him glowed faintly in the dim light. Cassie's hand shook as she helped Erin undo the tubes, her mind screaming with the same refrain over and over. What if this kills him? What if this kills you? He'll wake up slow, Erin whispered. He's adjusting Logan's head. But the drugs, they've kept his body too quiet for too long. He needs out, Cassie, or you'll be the last person who ever heard him speak. Cassie didn't respond. Her heart was slamming so hard it echoed in her ears. They moved quickly, transferring Logan to a wheelchair and draping a blanket over his frame. Cassie slipped ahead, cleared the hallway, and together they wheeled him through the staff exit under the dim flicker of an emergency light. 10 minutes later, her cab was barreling down I-84 with Logan half conscious in the back seat, mumbling her name like it was a life raft. His head lolled. She kept one eye on him, the other on the road, whispering promises into the wind. "You're okay. Just hold on. We're almost there." The apartment wasn't much, just a narrow studio above a laundromat with water stains on the ceiling and a heater that wheezed in protest every time she turned it on. But that night, it became a sanctuary. Logan came to slowly. Cassie was kneeling beside him with a cool rag, her free hand pressed against her belly. When his eyes finally focused, he whispered, "Where am I?" "Safe," she replied, though she wasn't sure if that was true. Over the next hour, Logan told her everything about Gregory Cross, about the hotel chain his biological father left him, about the trust he was set to inherit on his 25th birthday, just a week away. Gregory had been grooming him to sign it over since he was a teenager. When that failed, the threat started. And when Logan refused to yield, they made him disappear. Cassie listened, each word nodding something deeper inside her. She saw in him a mirror, not of her past, but of her present. A person stripped down to nothing and still choosing to fight. And yet, something didn't sit right. Not with the way Logan talked about Gregory. Not with how cold the man had been about his son lying in a coma. "What aren't you telling me?" she asked, crossing her arms. Logan hesitated, then glanced toward the window like the shadows might be listening. "There's something else," he said. "I wasn't just supposed to inherit the company. I have documents, real ones. Proof that Gregory siphoned funds from my father's foundation, bribed state officials, laundered money through shell charities." Cassie blinked. "You're saying this isn't just about money, it's criminal." Logan nodded. "If I go public, I can bury him. And you think he knows that?" "I know he does." Cassie swallowed hard. The baby kicked, a flutter of life reminding her of everything she stood to lose. Her mind split down the middle, between the girl raised to do the right thing and the woman fighting just to keep the lights on. "Cassie," Logan said, voice softer now, "you don't owe me anything, but I can't do this without help. Not anymore." She stared at him, saw how pale he still was, how broken, but not beaten. He didn't need a savior. He needed someone who wouldn't leave when things got hard. She knew that feeling too well. But her silence wasn't fear. It was calculation. Because Logan had just dropped something bigger than either of them could carry alone. Not just scandal, but power, corruption, and the kind of truth people killed to bury. "I'm in," she said finally. "But we do this smart. No more impulse. No more risking lives on blind faith. We plan, we record, we expose him piece by piece, not in one fireball." Logan nodded, his hand resting over his ribs. Agreed. But just as the words left his mouth, someone pounded on her door. Cassie jumped to her feet, instinctively shielding her belly as she stepped toward the peephole. She didn't recognize the man. A delivery uniform, too clean, too perfect. But something in his stance set her nerves ablaze. A box in his hands, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Cassie didn't open the door. "You Cassie Bennett?" he asked, voice cheery. "Package for you from mutual friend." Her blood ran cold. Logan was already reaching for the gun she kept hidden behind the radiator, a relic from a past she hoped she'd never need again. The man slid the box onto the floor and turned, casual, like this was just another stop. Cassie waited 5 full minutes before opening the door. The box had no label, no return address, just her name, scrawled in black marker. Inside, a burner phone and a folded photo, a snapshot of her apartment taken from across the street, Logan standing in the window, visible, vulnerable. The phone buzzed to life before she could breathe. One chance. Give him to us. Or next time the photo isn't a warning. Cassie stared at the screen. Her heart thundered. Every instinct screamed to run. But she wasn't just Cassie the cab driver anymore. She was someone's mother, someone's protector. And maybe, just maybe, she was about to become someone's reckoning. Would you risk everything you have left to protect someone who might get you killed? And as the darkness closed in around Cassie's small world, one thing became certain. Gregory Cross had just declared war. The rain returned the next night, soft at first, then steady, soaking the city in a kind of silence Cassie hadn't felt in months. She sat at the edge of her bed, Watching Logan sleep on the couch with his arm flung protectively over the duffel bag they now both knew held evidence powerful enough to bring down one of the wealthiest men in the Northwest. Her fingers brushed the burner phone on the table, still warm from the last threat. She hadn't told Logan everything. She couldn't. Not yet. She stared at the blurry photo of their apartment window, her window, and felt her pulse spike all over again. The message had been clear. If she didn't hand Logan over, they would come, and they wouldn't knock next time. She should have been terrified. Maybe she was. But somewhere underneath the fear was something sharper, more resilient. Something her grandfather had planted in her long ago. Don't wait for someone to save you. Build the kind of life no one can take from you. Cassie stood, crossed the room, and pulled the closet open. She reached into a box beneath old work shirts and lifted out a folder, her just-in-case insurance plan. Inside were copies of the USB files, names, bank statements, wire transfers, and a letter she'd written weeks ago, in the small hours between exhaustion and determination. If something happened to her, she wanted someone to know the truth. She stared at the letter now, her name at the bottom in smudged ink. She wondered if it would ever need to be mailed. The next morning, Logan's voice brought her back. "You didn't sleep," he said. He was leaning against the kitchen counter, bruises still lining his jaw, but his eyes were alert. She shrugged. "Didn't feel safe enough." He nodded. "I think it's time. We go to the DA with everything. I'm tired of waiting for them to come to us." Cassie bit her lip. "We won't get another chance if this goes wrong. This isn't just paperwork. It's war." Logan stepped closer, resting a hand over hers. "I won't let anything happen to you or the baby." She believed him. That wasn't the problem. The problem was Gregory Cross had built his life on knowing exactly when to strike, and Cassie had a gnawing feeling he was already one move ahead. The district attorney's office was crawling with security when they arrived. The files were handed over, the statements recorded, and Logan's testimony was sharper this time. Measured, damning. Cassie sat across from two state investigators, repeating every detail. The night she found Logan on the road, the envelope of hush money, the man at her door. By nightfall, there was a warrant out for Gregory Cross's arrest. But Cassie knew better than to celebrate early. It came 2 days later, not with sirens or headlines, but with silence. She arrived home after a short shift to find the door to her apartment ajar. Her heart dropped. She stepped inside, every nerve screaming. Nothing looked out of place at first. Logan's hoodie was draped over the chair. A mug still half full sat on the counter. But then she saw it, her evidence box ripped open. The letter she'd written was gone. She turned around and froze. Gregory Cross stood in her living room, calm, polished, like he'd just come from a business lunch instead of breaking into her home. "You're tougher than you look," he said, smiling faintly. "I underestimated that. I won't make the same mistake again." Cassie reached slowly for the knife block behind her, but Gregory raised one hand. "Don't bother. I'm not here to hurt you." His gaze dipped to her belly. "Not directly." His voice was smooth, but Cassie heard the malice in every syllable. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice tight. "Simple. You convince Logan to recant. Say you made it up. Say he was confused, drugged, traumatized. You're the only witness whose name matters now." "And if I don't," she said, though she already knew. Gregory stepped closer, eyes cold. "You'll wake up one day and Logan won't. Or your baby will grow up asking what happened to her mother. You choose." Cassie didn't flinch. "Not this time." "You know what I learned about threats, Mr. Cross?" she said quietly. "They only work if the person you're threatening is still afraid." His brow lifted, amused. "Are you not?" "I was," she whispered. "But then I realized I've already survived the worst." He didn't answer, just stepped back, his smile curdling. "You've got one day." The door clicked shut behind him. That night, Cassie didn't sleep. She packed a go bag, wrote a new letter, and texted the DA directly with everything that had just happened. She held Logan's hand tighter than she ever had, not because she was scared, but because she finally understood what it meant to choose your people, no matter the cost. By morning, the city exploded. Gregory Cross, corporate giant and philanthropist, was arrested live on national news while boarding a private jet. Bribery, fraud, attempted kidnapping, witness intimidation, it all came crashing down in seconds. But the part that mattered to Cassie came hours later, when Logan walked into the hospital room where she lay, exhausted, holding their newborn daughter. He stood there, stunned, hands trembling as he reached for the tiny bundle swaddled in pink. "She's here," Cassie whispered. "She's really here." Logan sat beside her, tears streaking his cheeks. "What's her name?" Cassie smiled. "Hope, because even after everything, she's what pulled me through." In the weeks that followed, Logan testified again, this time in court, and the case became a landmark scandal that rocked the Pacific Northwest. Aaron testified too, protected now, finally safe. Gregory Cross was sentenced to 25 years without parole. But for Cassie, justice wasn't in the sentence. It was in watching Logan feed their daughter at 3 a.m., in every moment they carved from the wreckage to build something real. One crisp morning in spring, they walked through the park, Hope nestled between them in a stroller. Cassie spotted a man behind a desk at a travel agency, one who looked like a ghost from another life. Mason. He glanced up, froze. Cassie met his eyes calmly, then turned to Logan and smiled. "Let's go. We've got places to be." Mason didn't follow. Later that night, as fireflies danced outside the window and Hope slept on Logan's chest, Cassie curled up beside them and whispered, "We made it." But even she didn't expect what came next. There was a knock at the door. When she opened it, a woman stood there, rain in her hair, clutching a folder. I think we might be related," the woman said. "Your grandfather, Roy Bennett, was my father too." Cassie blinked. Her world, once so small, tilted slightly. Outside, the rain began to fall again. Soft this time, but steady. What part of this story touched your heart the most, and why? Comment 100 if this story moved you. Where in the world are you watching from? Share this video with a friend who loves emotional, real-life stories. Thank you for watching Life Stories.